What is up, guys? Welcome to Etsy Jam. In this episode, we are joined by Joanna from EWD Marketing. Joanna helps Etsy sellers connect to their target markets by honing in on the best titles, tags, and product descriptions. She also sells help guides and shop reviews through her Etsy shop. Stick around for the end of the show when she shares a special announcement with us. What is up, guys? I am Gordon from Marmalead.
And I am Richie from Marmalead. And if you don't know what Marmalead is a tool for serious sellers. If you are serious about your Etsy shop and being successful on Etsy, you need Marmalead.
And this week we have a special guest with us. We have Joanna here from EWD Marketing. And hello, Joanna. Thanks for joining us. Joanna is a seller on Etsy, and one of the main things that she provides is marketing services to other Etsy sellers. So she'll help you with tags and titles and descriptions. She has some help guides under her shop, if you guys want to check that out too. She's got a lot of cool stuff out there. And so we wanted to take this opportunity to talk with Joanna a little bit about how she goes about the process of things that she does, how she uses Marmalead to do those things. And as a little bonus, I don't want to tease too much here, but we're going to announce something kind of exciting at the end of the show. So make sure you guys stick around for that. So welcome, Joanna. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you, guys. I'm so happy to be here.
It's awesome to have you. Can you start by maybe giving a little bit of a background on how you got started with Etsy?
Sure, I'd love to. I started on Etsy doing handmade several years ago. And by trade, I'm a contract seamstress and designer. And I live up in the mountains of Clarksville, New Hampshire. We're actually located on the 45th parallel. And for those of you that aren't familiar with your geography, we're actually halfway between the equator and the North Pole. So yes, it gets cold here. It snows early and it stays late. So when the rest of you are enjoying spring, we're still here shoveling snow.
That's awesome. I actually lived in Milford, New Hampshire for about 9 years of my life. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yep. So you were in the southern part of the state. So that was cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, it's where I am. Everything I've had to do has been online, and Etsy has been a fantastic venue for selling my handmade products. And what really came about was interesting is I was doing contract work for a company based down in North Carolina. And they approached me the end of January of this year, asking for some help with their SEO. And we kind of muddled around with it for a little bit. And when April came, we got serious about it. And she had laid out for me saying, I want to double my sales from the previous year simply using SEO. And I said, great, I'm on board. And so I jumped on and I started helping them. By the end of July, the first week in August, they hit their sales of what they did last year.
That's awesome.
And they were already, I'm sure they're going to do more than double their sales by the time they close the books for this year.
That's awesome.
They're going to need a bigger goal.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm excited for them. I'm really, really happy that it worked. But it was simply by doing SEO, by polishing things up and making everything relevant. But it was because of her urging of actually calling me up on the phone one day and said, I'm not getting off the phone, sit down at your computer, open that shop, and I'm not letting you off until you do it. And so that's how EWD Marketing came to be. She forced me to sit down and do this, but I didn't think anybody else was going to use the service. I just felt that this was a God-given talent that I was able to discern this information. Marmalead has been at the core of this. And I just, once I was on my own, no longer working for that company, I had to get serious with my business. And that's kind of what has evolved and how I've been able to help and market for other shops as well.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. And I want to call out one of the things you mentioned there too. You kind of said you started working with them in January, right? And then maybe around April-ish timeframe, you had established what sort of goals they wanted to meet and a game plan of how to achieve that. And in July, you'd met the sales basically that they did the previous year, which is fantastic. But I think a lot of times people expect like overnight success with SEO stuff. And, 6 months, wow, that's a pretty short period of time when you really think about things in order to be able to hit your sales goals from a 12-month time period. That's fantastic. But it's still not an overnight thing. And I want to make sure that people understand that SEO takes time, right? It takes time to build this stuff up. It takes time to go through listings and change that sort of stuff. It's not like you're going to go make a bunch of changes and then the next day
you have instant success.
Yes, exactly.
And to that point, I just finished doing some SEO for a particular customer, and she came back and said, it's been 24 hours and I have no views. This didn't work. And I said, no, it doesn't work that way. I gave you some great SEO. You're on multiple first pages of search. You have to now give it time, but there's a lot of other factors. The reason that this company did so great in such a short period of time is they were well established. They already had a core business. They had people that were coming back for repeat sales. But what we did through the SEO was we fine-tuned it so we were really going for her target audience, which is what she was missing. And then when we fine-tuned and we were speaking the customer's language, not our own, that's when everything turned for them.
Nice.
And that makes the difference. It's and as we all know, SEO is only one piece of this big puzzle.
Absolutely.
And you can't depend on the SEO. You can have the best SEO, you can be on every first page, and you can be in that coveted first spot that everybody wants to be and not get a view and not get a sale, because there's more that goes to that. You might not have the product people want. It might not be the color they want. The picture might not be inviting. I mean, there's a lot of variables that go into it.
There are. I've started to describe that lately as kind of like baking a cake. There's a lot of different steps and ingredients, and if you miss something, you're just gonna have a bad time, right? You can't just substitute something out. I'll just forget the flour. Okay, well, that was like the whole cake. So now you just have sugar and eggs. I don't know what you're doing.
This is very true.
I'm also surprised sometimes when when shops don't recognize the power of SEO. They think it's just kind of something out there that is a nice to have or whatnot. And I like to look at that also as the difference between just knocking on doors and saying, hey, do you want to buy my product, versus people coming up to you and saying, hey, do you happen to have this? And if you do, you say, yeah, here you go. And their chances of buying it are way higher than if you just people on the street. Hey, you want a coffee mug? You want a coffee mug? You want a coffee mug? Like, no, I'm just some dude walking down the street.
I have the best analogy that I use that I teach my clients with. Okay. You picture your shop, Etsy, your shop is one in Etsy. Okay. And there's thousands of other shops. So picture the Mall of America. Okay. How big that place is, how many stories tall, and you're one shop in that mall. You have thousands of people funneling through, but out of those thousands of people that are coming through, maybe only a handful are your customer. So you need to be able to have the advertising and the signage and everything that's going to attract them to come browse your store. Doesn't guarantee a sale, but it does get them there. Well, it's the same thing with Etsy. Etsy's the Mall of America. Actually, it's the Mall of the world, really. And we're all these shops that are in there. And what you're doing with your SEO is by being as relevant as possible and making sure your most important keyword is first, working backwards to the least important one in your title, then supporting it with your tags. Now what you're doing is you're talking to your actual customer base. So you're filtering out, because the other panic that I always hear is, oh my gosh, after you did my titles and tags for me, my views dropped by, I used to get 300 views a day. Now it's only 30. And I'm like, yay, because now you're talking to your audience.
Right.
And they're like, whoa, there's only 30 people coming. I said, but those are 30 people that are truly interested in your product. The other people weren't. Those are all the window shoppers that walk by your shop and happen to look in the window. They weren't your customer. They just passed by. And that's the same thing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. There's lots of different ways of measuring the success of your SEO changes, right? Not just looking at views. You kind of have to keep an eye on your conversion rate too, because like you said, if you're getting less views, but you're maintaining that sales that you had before or getting more sales, then your conversion rate is actually going to be improving and you're going to be doing better in that space.
And that goes back to one of the points that was made in your last episode that you folks were talking about how things are rewarded, because the better your products are doing and selling, the way that they're being seen and viewed, favored, and that ratio actually plays a hand in that, because these people that play the fave-a-thons and they come in and 100 people flood your shop and favorite your items and then they leave, that's skewed your numbers. So your ratio is off dramatically, because now the algorithm's going to say, whoa, something's wrong with this product. They just had 300 people come into the shop. They got
nobody
300 favorites. Nobody bought it. You get deranked.
Yeah.
And that's a terrible thing to have happen. So it's the the more you fine tune it and you see that number going down, you're going to see your sales go up. And it's a hard point, and it's a trust issue that people have to trust you on this. But what you will see, I always watch my numbers, and when my numbers are inching up, I immediately go back in and look at my SEO because something's changed and I have to go in and make adjustments for it. Because if you can keep that number in perspective, so for example, I had 5 views in one sale. That's better than I used to have, which were 30 views in one sale. My ratios are much better, and that is an average ratio for my shop now.
Mhm.
5 to 1 is what you're actually running with right now?
Yes. Yep.
Wow.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yep.
Am I thinking that correct? That's 20%? That's
Yeah.
That's like 6 times higher than what Etsy would like you to target.
Yeah.
But it is very niche, and I've truly targeted my customers. And so that's what I'm working on in my handmade shop as well. The numbers started there were close to 300 views to a sale, brought it down to 200 views to a sale, and we're working now to get it down to where it's at 60 views to a sale. But I'm still going to work that till it gets down to around 20 to 15 views equals a sale. Then I know I'm truly speaking to my customer. But
Which
it's
is awesome.
time. It's time.
It is. And there's definitely some benefits to having a higher conversion rate too. So even though, traffic in your Etsy shop is pretty much free, right? It's not like you have to really pay for that, but it's really a health metric. But also, since you're getting your true customer in there, you're getting better customers. You're spending less time on window shoppers, spending more time with true customers. And you're really serving people that really like what you do because that's who you're targeting. So you're not getting kind of the wishy-washy.
And on top of it, it works for, I don't care if you're selling vintage, you're selling supplies, you're selling handmade, you're selling fine arts, whether you're selling the charms, you see a lot of the charms in the jewelry shops or whatever. It works for any shop. It's just as long as you're talking your customer's language and you are refining your titles and tags to stay up, because you have to refine them on a regular basis. When it's not done, do it now and it's done forever. It's not, because you have seasonal fluctuations and you have vocabulary changes. And a good case in point is baby overalls. For the longest time, I called them baby overalls, and very few views for it, but yet that's what they were. But upon searching to see what the modern mom was looking for, they were calling them rompers. It wasn't what I would have termed a romper, but by changing that metrics, the views tripled overnight and the sales started. So it's all a matter of learning what your target customer is calling your product. It doesn't matter what I call it. It matters what my customer calls it so they can find it, so they can buy it.
That's a great point too. A lot of times when we're like, hey, what would you call this? It tends to be someone we know really well.
Yep.
And they tend to share a vocabulary.
Yeah.
So if you ask your neighbors and the people your family, if your friends, people you hang out with all the time, they're gonna be like, well, duh, that's those are overalls.
Right. And there's also the different language depending on what country you're in, or even what part of the United States, just like soda or pop or tonic. It's all the same drink to us, but depending on where you are in the United States, it's used, a different word is used to describe it.
That's a great point. So what part uses tonic?
Down in the southern part did, where we were visiting down in Georgia, we used to call it was tonic down there. Yeah.
Wow. Even like a Pepsi or something, they call it tonic.
Yep.
I look at that, learning something new. I'm aware of the pop and soda thing, which I think is really funny because I've been down in the South where if you say pop, they're like, well, what are you talking about? But up north, I was aware of the both, right? We hear like, oh yeah, some people say soda, some people say pop, and then some people put together and say soda pop.
Exactly. So that's again where you've just got to learn what your customers. So if you're targeting your customer, you need to know where you're targeting them to. So if I'm going to target an international customer, I'm also going to make sure that I'm going to include some listings that talk their language. And that makes a big difference because they don't call it the same thing that we do. And I'm learning this. And it's actually quite fun to discover the differences, but it takes some time. It takes some homework.
So next question for you, which I'm sure a lot of shop owners are asking themselves right now, is how do you go about doing that? How do you speak your customer's language?
Well, to speak a customer's language takes time, and it takes a little bit of dedication. I actually like to just get on to Etsy and start searching because I sell internationally. It allows me to search an international shop.
Mm-hmm.
And when you pop on and you find somebody that's from England or somebody that's from Israel or somebody that's from Africa, you can go into their shop that's selling a similar product and see what they're calling it. It's right there. The information is readily available.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll also find it using Marmalead when you use search. You'll see words come up and you'll say, what the heck is this? And it's number 5 on the list. I got to go look this up. And you'll discover it's a terminology that's being used someplace else that is foreign to me, but it's absolutely natural to them. So that's something you definitely want to be able to incorporate into the title.
Like, hey, that's not a romper. Oh wait, maybe it is.
And sometimes even if it doesn't fit the dictionary definition, if that's what people are calling it, by all means, let your customer call it that.
That's right.
You know,
exactly.
I want that romper. That's not a romper. You can't have it.
I don't sell rompers.
Get out of my shop. That's for people that know what it is.
Oh, that's funny.
So, do you want to take us through a little bit of the process that you're using when you jump into Marmalead to do some of this research and how you use that as a tool?
I have a fun one for everybody. If anybody that's listening wants to jump on and sign into their Marmalead account now, you can actually follow right along and do it with me. We're not going to do a screen share. We had problems with our Skype earlier, and I don't want to whammy us again and have us not be on there. But if you sign into your Skype and into your Marmalead, one of the things that I like to do first thing in the morning is I head into trending. I want to know what's trending today. So I pop on in, and especially when I have orders waiting for different customers that they're looking for titles and tags for. So I like to see what's trending. Is anything that I've got coming up, is it on the trending list? Because that's going to help me give them an advantage. So one of the things right now that's trending is called fingerless gloves. It's number 4 on the trending list. And this is something a lot of people don't know. If you just go ahead and click on that, I know it's not highlighted, but if you click on that, it's going to bring you right into search, and it's going to search fingerless gloves for you, which is one of the things I absolutely love. It's a time saver because the less times I have to type something, the better off I am. And what you see right now is you see the engagement is very high, although you will see the competition is high, and you'll see the category is low. And I love that. And I like to look at the metrics. I like to see how many average views a week. I like to see how many average faves for the week as well. You can see what your average price is. I take a quick scan down and I look at the pictures and say, okay, this fits with what my client is looking for or what I have that's available that I'm going to be selling. So I know this is definitely a keyword I'm going to use. The other thing I look at is on the right-hand side under other ideas. Another thing a lot of people don't realize is as you're scanning down this, all of these are clickable as well. So I already know fingerless gloves is one that is a high keyword for me, and that's one that's going to go into my list. But another thing is I'm scanning down on the right-hand side, I notice it says fingerless gloves knitted. So I'll click on that as well because this is a different keyword metric right here, but it's still the same product, at least I think it is. And this is going to let me know, doing a quick search again, I'm going to see the numbers, I'm going to see the pictures. Now, what's good about this, although it has moderate engagement, it also has moderate competition. You can scan down and you see that the average views are 26.9 a week, and the average fave is 8. And this is really good. This is now zooming in onto your actual potential customer. So what I like to do is I highlight and copy the fingerless gloves knitted, and then I head on into Storm. For me, Storm is one of the best things you guys ever came up with. I know I had contacted you in the beginning and said, what is this? Nothing makes sense that's coming up. What does baby have to do with a sign, And had all kinds of baby clothes were coming up. And I was just, you guys have lost it. Well, then I got a nice message back. Calm down. This is what it's designed to do. Sort it out, play with it, give it a chance. I did. I love it. So when I put this in, you click on it, and all of a sudden it populates this huge list for you. And what I like about this is the first thing I do is anything that's green that has a high competition, as long as it pertains to pretty much what I'm looking at, I'm going to go ahead and click on it. Now it has beanie. I don't know if beanie is for the hat or if this is for the toy. So in this particular case, I would let that go. There's one that says boot poppers, and this is going to sound strange, but I'm going to add that to my list as well. And then I'm just going to simply go right down the list, and anything that pertains to what I'm doing, I'm going to click it, and I'm going to send it right over there, and I'm going to start this list. And as you go down, and the more things you add to the list, the list on the left side keeps growing because it's saying, okay, you're liking this. We're going to bring back some other things that correlate with what you're clicking on. And suddenly you're going to discover you're having all these different things that are showing up that you never thought about before. So I'm just going to grab a few here. I come back over and you can save this list. I click save so I have it to come back to. And then I look through the list, and anything that has all greens, these are a niche market. These are things that people aren't paying attention to. And this is where you can say to yourself, oh my gosh, look at this. And one of the things on here are bridal gloves. Well, you have fingerless gloves. You have brides that get married in the winter. So if you had beautiful white fingerless gloves, this might be something that a bride would be interested in. And then as you continue down, you're going to see that there's one that says lace gloves. So if you tie that all together, you suddenly now have a niche market. B, you have some very unique keywords to go ahead and mix up and make yourself your brand new titles with, where you're going to stand out from everybody else because you have something totally different to stand out in a very crowded market, or everybody else is just simply calling it fingerless gloves, winter gloves, the basics that people think of. So through Storm, you're able to come in here and see some things, but it also lets me notice one other thing. What popped up when we put in fingerless gloves? We saw a lot of hats, and we saw a lot of headbands, and we saw a lot of boot cuffs, and we saw socks. So that got me thinking, I can also recommend to my client, you know what? You make this, this, and this as well. Why not bundle it? Because people are looking. There were solid greens that they're looking for the boot cuffs, and it was solid green that they were looking for the knitted socks. So if you put it together as a package deal, you've got a win-win. You've got something that other people don't have. You have a beautiful gift set. You have something that pertains to the holiday season. You have something that can be a nice gift to bring to somebody. For whatever it is. And so this is how I kind of fine tune all of this and make my list. I keep a whole list of it. Then I go back in and I use comparison. So with comparison, I'll take my different keywords that I just picked out of that list and I'll put them in and I'll mix them up, because depending on the order of a keyword, it will depend on how it actually comes up in search.
Mm-hmm.
So although something right now, fingerless gloves knitted comes up moderate, if you change and put the word knitted in the front, it may change the whole dynamics of this particular word and bring it to the forefront. And that becomes the difference in how I come about with finding that actually the best keywords for my clients to use, so that we can then have a nice string of words that make sense. Want to make sure you separate with a comma and a space, and then your next keyword or keyword phrase. I like the longer you can make your first one, the better you are. So I try to aim for 3 or 4 for my first keyword phrase. Oh, and by the way, I switched up and put knitted fingerless gloves first, and we went to high engagement, moderate competition, and low risk. So by changing that, you moved yourself out of a high competition arena to a much better one for using knitted fingerless gloves.
So
it's
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so it becomes, people say it's a lot of work, and it is. But when you take the time and you investigate it, you end up with what I call staying power. And that means when you get out there and you go back and you search, once you've done, you do a brand new listing, Even if you have something that you're going to update, rather than renew it, make a brand new listing, switch out your first picture to a new picture that people haven't seen for a while. Put your new titles and tags in, update your description to make sure it's using your titles and your in the first couple sentences you want your keywords there. Go ahead and publish it, wait 30 minutes, and go in and search by your first long tail keyword up to the first comma. And you should be on the first page of search. And then when you go ahead and you check your other keywords doing the same thing, you're going to find you're on multiple first pages of search. And then if you mix them around a little bit, you're going to still find you're coming up on more first pages of search. And that to me is the real staying power, because now you're out there. So if you roll off the first page of search on one, you're still on 5 or 6 more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. And oftentimes too, even after you have all of those keywords outlined, that's kind of the hard work, right? And you can even get a quick bump just by renewing the listing at that point. You've done the hard work. You've found the right keywords. You can rank on page 1 for each of those keywords that you found. If you find yourself starting to slip off, just a simple renewal of that listing, it might be enough to bump you back up to those spots.
Right. It will bump you back up, but you have to also remember the algorithm works interestingly now. Any new listing does not have a ranking. It takes 30 days for it to rank. Once it's been ranked, it can take up to 30 days for a new title and tags to re-rank it. I've tested it with my own products to see and actually watch the dynamics of it. So no matter how good the title and tags are, you may not stay on the first page for very long, because the algorithm assigns importance to it. Like if it's been there and nobody's looked at it, it's got no views, it's got no favorites, it's not going to keep it there, because it knows, well, I need to show customers something that they're interested in, and this has been there for 30 days and nobody clicked on it. So if you're going to be playing with your titles and tags, I always recommend that you just go in. It's the same fee, 20 cents. You might as well make a brand new listing and give yourself that shot and that opportunity. If it's a new listing and you've rolled off and you want to come back up, renew it if it's within the 30 days. But my philosophy has been to create the new listing after 30 days if you're not getting where you need to be and it needs an adjustment in the title and tags.
Mm-hmm. One of the things...
So kind of a clean slate approach.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I was going to say, one of the things I wanted to kind of point out too, obviously with the storm feature, people probably use it in all sorts of different ways. But one of the things that I really liked about the way you described that is you said you'd go in and put in your keyword, and then the first thing you would do is find keywords that were related to your keyword, right? And you start building out that list first. Then you would go back and look at the Marmalead scores. Now, in that suggestions list, we show Marmalead scores there. But if people are adding things to their list more based on the Marmaleaders than whether or not that keyword fits well with their listing, Marmalead's not going to do as good of a job as bringing up more keywords that are relevant to what you're trying to find, right? So the keywords that you're picking, it's really important to pick the ones that are related to your item, because in doing that, you're going to get more keywords that are specific to your listing. If you start to kind of go off of Marmaleaders, you could end up in a situation where it's going to start suggesting keywords that are farther and farther from where you're actually trying to go. So I kind of like that you focused on the keyword first and then the Marmaleaders second. And the other thing that I think is probably useful to some people is if you kind of do it that way, and then when you come back in, you can see, okay, check it out. These keywords that are actually relevant to me, they actually had bad Marmalead scores. That's okay. Like, I want to leave that in my list so that I can remember when I have to come in here and do this titles and tags updates thing down the road, because it's always good to refresh things. I can remember those keywords didn't have great Marmalead scores. I don't want to use those ones, right? Like, it's not only a list of keywords that I want to put on my listings, but keywords that I need to remember not to use.
Or it could also mean if it's got the big dreaded red, you grab it and mix the words up and see, just like I showed you, taking knitted and put it in the front, that gave you exactly what you were looking for.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So sometimes it's a matter of just playing with the words. And it may not be relevant now. It may have a red now. And 6 weeks from now, it could be your hottest title and tag, hottest keyword for it.
That's also a good point.
Yeah, makes sense. Things change. That's one of the things, like you said earlier, people sometimes think you can just set these things and forget them. But, like we were talking about before, when the You were telling me that the internet and everything was out at your house, right? Like the world keeps
Yep.
turning. Well, it
Yep.
works that way with markets too. Things keep
Exactly.
going.
And then the thing is, too, I wanted to address, people panic when they hear the algorithm is changing.
Yes.
And you hear everybody get so upset. I just finished doing my titles and tags, and I used to be one of them. I have to, here I am. I'm telling you, honest to God's truth, I used to be the first one that would be so upset by that. Now I've learned, I look forward to it because what it does is it cleans everything up. It makes you go back in, you focus, and now you're targeting your customer. And if you're they lay everything out for you. They tell you way ahead of time. Make sure everything's relevant. Make sure you filled out all your sections in your shop. Make sure you do really good descriptions. Don't leave anything out. When you leave things out, that affects your ranking as well. Every bit of your Etsy shop, every bit of your listing all has something assigned to it to get you to that perfect ranking score. But it still comes down to, it could be you need to redo your pictures. My pictures were the worst. I'm not the best photographer in the world, but I had to have some white backgrounds because I live in a log home. As you can see, there's wood all around me. So that casts a yellow tone onto everything. So people can't tell the color. It looks dirty. So I have to have this elaborate setup in my office in order to set everything up and take pictures so they come out nice and clear so you can see the colors now. And that made a big difference in how people reacted. So even though I had great SEO, my pictures were lousy and they weren't clicking on it because of the picture. It wasn't the SEO. But yet people will come back to me time and time again and you're saying, well, gee, I'm looking at the product and I can't tell which thing in the picture is what you're actually selling. It can be hard at times.
Yeah.
So when the algorithms change, and we do know there's going to be updates coming after the first of the year, they're all going to benefit us. And so the more relevant your title is and your tags, the better you're going to be. And when we say relevant, that means this title has to really speak about what your product is. You can't put, this is a really cute widget, because nobody's going to type in, this is a really cute widget, and search for that. They're going to put in widget. And so you have to use that in your description, but you can't use it in your title. Your titles don't read the way you normally read a sentence. The words the, are, and all of those things are left out. It's just a combination of words separated by a comma and a space. And I always educate people that if you cannot use it in the tags, the symbol is not allowed in for the tags, don't put it in your title. It works because your tags work the same way your title does. So it actually works like a stop sign. So if you put in one of those funny symbols in your title, that's it. Up to that point, that's all that's going to come up in the search. Everything else behind it, that was the stop sign that stopped it from reading the rest of your good title. And then make sure you mirror your title in your tags. And even if your first long tail keyword is 5 words long, you only have 20 characters you can work with, break it out so that you use those first 5 words in, for whether it's 2 or 3 tags that you have to break it out into. But your tag should read exact same order as your title reads, and then continue adding in. And I always say, make sure your shop name is one of your tags. It's a lot easier to tell somebody, head on over to Etsy.com and type this in. That's it. All your products are going to come up. You're on the first page of search and nobody else is there. It's just you. How cool is that? You want a little bit of a, chance to step up over everybody else. That's something you can put out everywhere. Here it is. Click Etsy.com, copy this and paste it in the search. You'll find everything I have to sell. And you're not going to have one bit of competition on that page.
That's a good point. A lot of times when I'm going to look at a shop, I'll type it in, hit enter, and it doesn't take me to that shop or search for that shop. It just kind of brings me to a page. And if I'm looking for a very specific shop, they do make it kind of difficult to just go right there.
Yeah.
I know I want to just go to your shop directly. But I've got to start typing and I've got to go click for the search shops that contain this.
Yep. Or trying to give them that super long URL and get them to do it all right. Because, you're going to lose them. You want these people shopping with you. Make it as easy as possible. Etsy.com, that's a no-brainer. And then you hand your business card with your business name, no spaces. Here it is. Type this in the search box and there's all your product. That's as simple as it can possibly get.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It all makes sense. These are good actionable tips.
So speaking of business name, how did you arrive at EWD Marketing? What's the EWD part?
My main company name is Eastwood Designs. And
Oh, okay.
so I just abbreviated it to be EWD Marketing because it made sense.
Nice.
And so that's how I ended up with that.
Nice. I was curious about that. I was like, I don't think those are her initials there.
Nope, not my initials. And it was so funny. I came up with Eastwood Designs because I live in the East. I love playing in the woods and I love to design. So that's how that business name came
That's
about.
cool.
And so here you go.
That's cool. I like that.
I like it.
So have you always lived on the East Coast in New Hampshire then?
I lived in Massachusetts for a while and then moved to New Hampshire. I love it here. I'm actually in what I call my playground. This is where anytime I had the opportunity to go hunting or fishing or hiking with my grandfather, this is where we came. And I'm literally living 4 miles down the road from where we used to camp.
Oh, that's cool.
Pretty cool to be back in the old place where I learned all the outdoor stuff with him.
That's cool. Yeah, my grandfather actually lives in Massachusetts, a little town called Ipswich. It's on the north coast there. But
that's a nice little town.
Yeah. No, I really liked living in New England. It was really cool. It was mountains and stuff. We're out in Ohio now, and it's not really the same thing with mountains out here. So
there are mountains in Ohio.
There's like hills ish.
I look out at mountains every day out my front door. I just absolutely love it. Watch the sunrise up there, and it's awesome.
And you just went through autumn too, which is a beautiful time to be in New England when all the trees are changing colors, and you've got those pine trees that don't obviously change color, and it just it looks cool offset with one another.
There's nothing better than watching that mountain change color in the fall and just sitting out there, a hot cup of cider and just watching that. And it's spectacular. We get to watch the moose when they're in rut, and the bull moose. We've actually watched some fights right out front.
No way! Oh man,
really cool. Yeah, and I'm a nature girl, so I love it all. I love to track animals. I love it. We when we first moved here, there were like 10 bears in the neighborhood, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy, and people are like, well, you're nuts. And it's like, no, I love it. You don't understand. So, and I love winter. It's my favorite season. And so having all the snow, I'm in heaven right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, winter's fantastic, especially if you don't have to go anywhere. You can just kind of stay in, hunker in, put a fire in the fireplace, and enjoy.
Amen to that.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yep.
Well, do we want to spill the beans on the special announcement that you had for people?
Let's do it.
One of the things that I hadn't shared yet was when I first started EWD Marketing after I was done with the company helping them, and now I had this company, and what am I going to do with it? And the first thing that happened is people always said, they would look at it and they wouldn't buy it because they felt the price was too low. So I had that to overcome. And secondly, I had to overcome the fact that here I am, I have something that I needed to be able to stand out from the rest of the others that were selling a similar product. So I did a video that I posted up in my shop that explains why I'm not here to break the bank. I'm here to help you, fellow Etsyers. I want you to be successful. You can't charge $25 to do a listing. I mean, you might only be selling a product for $50. That's going to cut dramatically into your profits. The other thing is I needed to have something that really puts put meat on the bone, so to speak. It had to be something that people knew I meant business with what I said. So I gave everything a 100% guarantee. I guarantee your placement on the first page of search based on your new titles and tags. You get a complete PDF from me that explains A to Z how to use this, how to set up your new listing, my guarantee. Here's everything. We get out there. I've probably had 4 that I have had to go in and adjust that we did not land on the first page for. Going in, 3 of the 4, I knew we wouldn't. It was going to be a real gamble. There was a particular page they wanted to be first on with over 200,000 views. We missed the first time, but after a couple of adjustments, we actually landed them there in the first spot, which was pretty cool.
That's awesome, yeah.
Which was pretty awesome. But I give a 100% guarantee, and I stand behind it because I believe in what I do. I know I can get you there. I know that it works. And so, and Marmalead helps me. This is one of the tools that I use to get there and make sure. And I do my homework. And so what I wanted to offer to everybody is, I know this time of year, money's tight. People looking to get an advantage. You're trying to get out there. You're trying to get some sales. You might have products that have been invisible for a long time. You just really, you need the help, and I'm not here to break the bank. So what we're going to do is offer you 40% off anything within my shop. You've got 7 days to shop, and you're going to use a coupon code that you can remember, and it's going to teach you how to spell Marmalead.
Bonus.
So it's Marmalead 12-8, okay? And this is good for 40% off. My camera keeps zooming in and out. I'm sorry about that. Okay. And this is good for a week. So all you have to do is go there. It's good for anything in the shop at all. Shop reviews, product descriptions, title and tag revisions, any of the downloads that I have in there. It's all there, 40% off. You've got 7 days. Have yourself a ball.
I thought you were doing the camera zoom as like dramatic effect for the announcement.
I wish. No, it's this funky camera on this particular Skype. It just does that for whatever reason. I have to sit really still to make it stop.
That's awesome.
It likes to follow you.
That's awesome. Well, that's a sweet discount. That's fantastic. And thanks for doing that, for putting that together.
You're so welcome.
Yeah, we'll definitely share that out.
You folks have done so much for me. My business wouldn't have come about had it not been for you folks. And the fact that I'm able to help so many other Etsyans, I truly believe that by teaching them and showing them, they learn how to do it themselves, then they can come in. It's overwhelming. I mean, you're trying to get your product sold. That's the first thing. So if I can help you get your product sold, then you can calm down and say, okay, let me go look at this thing that's called Marmalead and see if I can wrap my head around it. Then they ask me questions and I help them with it. And they're successful. How can you go wrong? That's what it's all about.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for that. That's really great to hear that. It is overwhelming. There is so many things that go into it. And, we talked earlier, even throughout the whole show, it was like SEO is kind of a part of the whole thing. Well, SEO in and of itself isn't the easiest thing to always wrap your head around too, right? That's what we try to do with Marmalead and help with that. But it's kind of intense. It can be really intense, and especially all the different sources of information out there and sorting out what's actually true versus not true, testing things. So it is a lot. So that's awesome. Thank you.
And sometimes people like to come and have me do I've had them come, I do one listing, and then they get that aha moment. They understand what's meant by relevancy, and then they're off and running on their own, which is way cool. I love that. I've had others come in. I've had several shops do this. They've come in and they've plunked down and said, okay, you're doing my entire shop. And now I'm telling you, that's a whopper when that happens. But I've done it, and they've been on the first page. And how can you go wrong? Your entire shop, there's not one product that isn't found on the first page of search. But I'll tell you, that is a challenge if all the product is similar. Think about it. You're doing sweaters, or you're doing hats, or you're doing pillows, and that's
rompers.
All you're doing. I had to come up with, rompers. Excuse me. I had to come up with separate titles and tags for each. But we did it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's quite a challenge. Good job. Wow. I know it's always when people ask me about that, and they have like one thing, like you said, they're doing hats. And they're like, there's only so many ways to describe a hat, even with keyword research. And it's like, yes, there is. I know. There are only some ways.
There are only so many ways of doing that. But then there's what I call spreading the net. And that's where you bring in all the things, gifts under 50, gifts for men, gifts for women. And that's when you start targeting housewarming gifts, baby showers, weddings, anniversaries. You start spreading the net. But also, as I showed you, by using trends and going in, you can spot niche markets, and your product fits into a niche. Now you've got a whole new set of keywords you can work with, and that starts broadening things out for you even more. So this, I've had people come and say, I can't call it this, it's this. I said, well, that's what you're calling it, but trust me, your customers are calling that. And within 48 hours, I've got a message coming back. I can't believe it, but it's sold. It's gone. It's sold.
That's awesome.
Let's see.
That's awesome. Those are the best emails too, right?
Oh, they are. I love those. I love hearing from my customers, especially the non-believers that, they come in very negative. all the way through until you come back and you show them here. I don't just go in and I look and track your results. I send it to you and say, here are all the first pages you're being found on.
Yeah.
And they're shocked because people think there's only one first page of search and there's not.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to educate them on, that even though you're not on this one, you're on these 7 others, you know? So what, you rolled off that, you're still in 7 more places on a first page.
Yeah, that's
you
a good point. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, Joanna, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and talk with us about all this. This was really fantastic. Going through Marmalead and seeing how you used it, seeing how you solved some of those issues, and helping people find their target audience is huge. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. It's been awesome.
Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it.
And for anyone who's listening, go check out Joanna's shop. It's EWD Marketing on Etsy. And again, use that promo code that she's offering you guys to get 40% off on anything that she has in there. She's got some cool help guides too. So check those out also. I
was also going to say, so for anybody that's listening to this in audio in the car or something like that, where they couldn't pull up Marmalead, make yourself a note to go back and follow along with what Joanna was telling you in the follow along section of this podcast right here.
Good point. And you reminded me of something else too. So a lot of people listen to this show over audio. If you're not aware, we also have it on YouTube. So for anyone who wants to punish themselves by seeing Richie and I, instead of just hearing our voices, you guys can check us out on YouTube also. Just do a search for Etsy Jam on YouTube and we should pop up.
That's a great point.
But that's all I have.
You also have a Christmas tree in the background today.
I do. Yeah. Merry Christmas.
Really festive.
Christmas is coming. Yeah. So yeah, and then anyone who's listening probably won't be able to see that tree. So.
Nope, it won't. And Joanna's a plant that the camera really seems to like. So
yeah, look,
it's going to it. It does like it.
It knows we're talking about it.
Skype gremlins.
That's pretty awesome. Oh man. Well, thanks again, Joanna. This was fantastic. Really appreciate you taking the time to do this. This was really good. For everybody else, we will catch you guys next time on Etsy Jam.